All right, all right. I am so excited to introduce you today's podcast guest, Cammie Petty Palmer. I love her name. Do you always say your middle name with everything?
No, I actually have two last names, so it's
Oh,
actually a double last name.
well, there you go. I met somebody the other day who had four names. My nieces actually have four names, and I was always like, oh,
Yeah,
but I didn't know if anybody had two last names, not
yeah,
hyphenated.
yeah. I guess four names. I have my first, my middle, and then my two last names.
That's
So,
awesome when you're extra special. And we're so glad that we get to know you more today. Guys, I got to know Cammie a bit a while back at the Rachel Hollis Rise business event last November. She dated it when we were just going through her podcast, and I'm thinking, holy cow, a year has almost gone by. And I love just being in community with like-hearted, like-minded women who are go-getters. I say glow-getters, and Cammie is surely one of them. And so she's going to just kind of unpack a bit of her story and hopefully provide some inspiration to other women and perhaps men who are alongside the Fit and Faith podcast journey. And so I just want you to unpack a bit of your bio because it's plentiful, and see where our conversation leads. I love that this is an unscripted experience, so there's no probe questions. She has no idea what's about to happen, and I'm excited.
I love that. Well, hi, I am Cammie Petty Palmer, and we'll address the Petty Palmer to start out. So I was married before, unfortunately, went through a really bad divorce with some abuse and cheating and a whole bunch of really terrible things that had gone on, and so needed to step away from that for safety reasons, and found out 4 days later that I was pregnant, which was
Oh, wow.
crazy.
See, I
Yeah.
don't even know some of the things that happen on this podcast.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've been an entrepreneur since 2010. I started my very first business doing wedding planning for many different clients. And my first start going into rentals, which is what I do today, I had a client who was like, hey, I have burlap and lace and mason jars and all those things back when it was DIY. And they're
Yes.
like, I know that we love this stuff, and I'm sure you have other clients that want it. Do you want it for free? And I was like, sure, I'll offer it to my clients. And from there spurted a just a design desire for me. I was like, I really love this. So in 2012, I started my rental business in Phoenix, Arizona. I also got married the same year in 2012. 2.5 years later, we unfortunately ended our marriage in divorce and found out I was pregnant 4 days later, which was a whirlwind. And I remember the day like it was yesterday. It was one of those days that you think like, it's been a little bit since that thing that comes every month.
It's the
And
worst and exciting.
in every commercial on TV and every like ad on the radio was talking about pregnancy and pregnancy tests and like all these things, and I was like, I'm really stressed right now going through a divorce, and so maybe that's why it's not coming. But to ease my stress, I'm just gonna take the test and just see what happens. And took the test, and a minute later the little plus sign came up, and a realm of multiple things went through my head, and the biggest one being sadness. And the reason for that was I had always imagined my life growing up as a little girl, having a marriage, then comes babies, then comes just a happy-go-lucky life. And I knew that by taking this pregnancy test, knowing that I was having a baby boy, at the time I didn't know it was a baby boy, but he is a boy, in that moment figuring, this is not how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be this way. And I haven't shared with a ton of people, but I did consider aborting him because I knew that, he is going to have a really tough life. And I was not about ready to go back into a really terrible situation. And I had actually did a lot of praying and a lot of soul searching and talking with other people who have been through something similar. And I said, you know what? For the betterment of this little baby, I am going to talk to my ex-husband. We're going to sit down and just have a conversation. Try to figure out, hey, how can we get from this really broken spot that we're in prior to filing for divorce and get to a place where we can be together and raise this little baby to grow up in a home that has two parents and doesn't have to have this broken life ahead of him. And unfortunately, he didn't want to give me the time of day, so we never had the chance to have that conversation. The abuse continued through the entire pregnancy and thereafter. Obviously from afar, I moved to Dallas, Texas in May of 2014 and moved in with my parents. I was like, I just need family. I just need to be around my family. And I actually took the pregnancy test at my parents' house and came out of the bathroom. It was just my mom and dad home, I think. And we were watching a chick flick because why not? They're the best.
Yes.
And I was like, I have to go to the restroom, like trying to play it off like I wasn't doing anything, and came out of the bathroom. They were sitting there watching the movie, and I came out and I just said, I have something to say. And they paused the movie, and I just broke down. I just broke down crying, and they didn't know I was why I was crying. I was bawling my eyes out. I swear I cried 1,000 tears that day. And I had my pregnancy test behind my back. I pulled it out and was like, I'm pregnant. And I remember the embrace, and it's making me tear up because they just embraced me and just held me and was like, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to get through this, and it's going to be okay. And I went to talk with some of their friends who had unfortunately been through something very similar, and they encouraged me, hey, if you don't want to know what the baby is sex-wise, just wait until you're ready. And at that point I considered, okay, maybe I'm going to have him go up for adoption, because I truly want the best for this little baby. I just want him to have a life that he deserves and have a life like I did, growing up in one household with a mom and dad and brothers and sisters, and just having a full, vibrant life. And from there, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to put him up for adoption. Not going to do an abortion. I had pulled away from that. It was a split-second thought that I regret ever having. And thought, okay, maybe I'll put him up for adoption. Well, you have to have the consent of the other parent. He did not want to give that consent. He said, I'll take him. If you don't want him because you're a bad mom, then I'll take him. And I said, well, that's not happening.
Right.
Let me just be clear, that is not happening. I'm not putting this little boy into that situation, because I know what that situation's like.
Right, of course.
That's the opposite of what needs to happen. And so I ended up going on with the pregnancy, found out he was a boy, and I never really connected to where he was born because of just the hurt and all the heartache that those 9 months were filled of. We ended up getting a formal divorce in October of 2014. Actually, this is a fun fact, there's only 2 states in the U.S. that you can get divorced while pregnant. Arizona was one of them. And so since my residency was in Arizona and I was pregnant, I was able to still get divorced. Whereas in Texas and in so many, I think it's Arizona and Idaho.
Yeah,
I can't remember
interesting.
clearly, but it's like somewhere in the northwest area. And those are the only 2 states that you can do this. And I believe it was by the grace of God that was true, because I just needed my wagon unhitched from his as quickly as humanly possible. And so that's what happened. On the day he was born on January 26, 2015. And on the day he was born, I was served in the hospital with papers telling me that he's not his son. And if he cheated, I must have cheated. And it's not his son. And, better yet, you might not even be the mom either, because maybe you're being a surrogate and you're asking for money. And I'm like, okay. That makes sense.
My God. And you're like, I just had a baby out of my vagina. Dude, yeah. You're like, this is not real.
Not real. Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. And so we finally went through. He was like, I'm going to order a paternity test. Paternity test came back, 99.9999% that it was his. And I was like, just because you cheated does not mean that I did.
Right.
And so it's just a crazy time. And my current husband, he was pursuing me during this entire time and then throughout as well. And I told him at the time, I said, I got to figure out who I am. I don't know who I am. It has been, gosh, since high school, since I had dated. And I said, I just need to figure out who I am and what my place in this world is, because I don't know. I don't know who I am. I don't know what is going on. And little things would happen, life would just happen, and birthdays would come around. And I remember sitting on my mom's floor. My mom blows birthdays out of proportion like crazy. I mean, it's
Yes, I wonder where you get your event desire from.
Yeah, I actually say the business side of my brain comes from my dad. The design side of my business comes from my mom.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, every night we would have dinner, and we'd have like the formal napkin and the formal place setting and a placemat, and like just
that's really cool.
That's what I grew up with, which was so fun. And birthdays, she had this big sign on the mantle that said "Happy Birthday" to whoever's birthday it was, and on it was encouraging notes of like, "You're the best, you're awesome, I love you, happy whatever birthday." I mean, it's so fun. And then we would have all these presents. She would, it was so funny. She would split up things so that there would be more boxes.
More presents to open. That's so my parents. I love that.
Yes, and it was so fun growing up. So that's where I get my design side.
That's awesome.
Of my brain. But I remember sitting there and we were wrapping presents. I want to say it was for one of my brothers. I'm one of 4. I have 3 younger brothers.
Oh, wow.
And we were wrapping presents, and she was like, I don't know. She asked me something about, presents and birthdays while I was married. And I was like, I never actually received presents. Like, he would just say you could go on a shopping spree or something, or he'd say, hey, here's $100, go buy yourself something. And I was like, man, one of my love languages is gifts and words of affirmation and all those things, which, no surprise, that's how all birthdays were growing up.
Yeah.
But sitting there, and I'd remember certain things from my marriage. And what's interesting is, gosh, probably a year before we got divorced, I sat down with a old high school mentor. She was my youth group leader for, gosh, I want to say sophomore, junior, and senior year at church. And she had been a photographer. I was in the wedding industry, so naturally we, worked together. Yeah. And we had gone to coffee, and we were sitting across, and she was like, there's something different about you. I can't put my finger on it, but something is off. And I was like, oh no, life is great. Like, no big deal. I hid my entire marriage from everybody.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know what was going on because I was in the wedding industry.
Right.
And I was planning all these weddings and thinking love is so like it's so great.
Oh, gosh,
and she had said something is off. Something is different. And in the same, I want to say it was the same time that we're wrapping presents and such, my mom had said, I see you again. I can see you again. And I didn't realize you were gone until you were back. And she said, I can see your laughter and your joy and your just your presence again. And it triggered that conversation with my old high school mentor, who's a photographer. Her name's Karen Sheffy. She lives in Colorado now. But I had remembered that conversation when, like, that was it. That was the thing that she was referring to. And you don't realize it when you're in the middle of it. You just don't. And it was from that moment on that I said, I need to always remember who I am. I need to always be grounded in who I was meant to be and who I was created by. And if I'm not, I'm going to lose myself again, and I don't want to get back to that place. And so had my son. Simultaneously, I was working, and I mentioned this on the podcast earlier, I was working for a full-time real estate agent doing all of his things. I mean, contracts and helping with showings and calling and following, I mean, all the things. And I was working part-time at a boutique because I'm a girl and I wanted cute clothes. So
fashion.
Right. And then I was working in my side hustle and just trying to do that. And I wasn't doing any of them great. I was just doing them, just to get a paycheck because I had my son to pay for.
Right.
And was doing all this work, stressing myself out like crazy. My current husband kept pursuing me, and I was like, hold up.
Yeah.
Not right now.
Can't handle you right now.
Yeah, I'm like, I need to not be like having a relationship at all right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I can help with Brody. And I'm like, no, not right now. Can't do it. I just can't. And so went through, just trying to figure out who I was, stressing myself out over work. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I love coming up with new ideas and leading a team and doing work for myself and trying to figure out like, hey, how can I take this thing from nothing and make it something? And so I finally went into my business full time in 2016 or 17. I can't remember at this point. And at the time, and I just talked about this, I was getting this rash up my arm of something that was a warning sign, of something that said, hey, I'm not taking care of me anymore. I'm not taking care of me mentally, spiritually, physically, health-wise. I was not taking care of myself. I was spreading myself so thin. And gosh, I'd get 4 hours of sleep a night because I had my son and he shared a room with me. I didn't even have a separate room for him, and he was teething, and I mean all the things.
Yeah, of course.
Working 3 jobs, and I mean it was just a crazy time. And I look back on those times and I say, gosh, that was crazy.
How did you do that? Yeah,
I don't know why I did that. And so all that to say, I finally started dating my husband, and I had actually been dating 2 other guys from a dating app called Bumble, because I was just like, you know what? I haven't been on a date since high school. Like, I just want to go on a date. I just want to, like, have fun.
Yeah, release some stress.
It was so fun. It was so great to go on dates, but I knew at the end of the day, those aren't the guys that I would have, eventually married. But it was fun just to be treated and to have someone else buy my dinner for the night.
Right.
And yes. And I finally had one of my girlfriends. She was like, you're not going to like pursue this with them any further than just a few dates. But Dylan, he's been pursuing you for like 2 years, maybe 3 at that point. And they were like, you need to do something with that. Like, just go on a date. Like, you're having so much fun at these dates. Just go on a date with them. And I was pushing back, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, because I think secretly in my mind, I thought, if I go on a date with him, I'm going to have so much fun. And it's going to turn into a serious relationship. And at the time, I wasn't ready for a serious relationship. I just wanted to have fun and go out on some dates, go to Topgolf, and just not have to do it with my child.
Yes, anything.
And all of that. And so we finally went on a date. It was the best date, and we had so much fun, and eventually got engaged and got married and all of that. And just life since 2014 has just been on a freight train, just going as fast as humanly possible. And 2017 was the year that I think we got married in 2017. I quit my full-time job in 2017. I've hired my first full-time employee in 2017. And then 2018, we got married in 2018. 2018, we got married. Found out I was pregnant for the second time. We moved from an apartment to a house. What else happened? Oh, my husband got diabetes. He was diagnosed with diabetes. And my event business was doing 100 events in 2017 and 500 events in 2018, and I hired 4 more full-time employees, and it was bonkers.
I'm tired, and I'm not even in the middle of it. Holy cow! I'm like, I'm processing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it was just the craziest year, and it ended with my husband being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 3 days before our daughter was born, and we checked out of that hospital and checked into the hospital for me to be induced, because it was right around Christmas time, and I did not want to be in the hospital on Christmas. And it was a busy year. There's no other word for it. It was just a busy, stinking year. And from that year on, we're like, we're not doing that again. That
was enough.
Yeah, so the next year we got more intentional with the business. We rebranded. We figured out, okay, we're not doing 500 events again. What do we actually want to do? And we just figured out life, and we figured out, hey, this isn't working, and so let's do it better. Let's do it different than the year before.
Yeah.
And so 2019, looking back, was a great year. We did, I think, 275 events or so, and that was a really healthy amount for our team. And we ended up merging from just primarily weddings to corporate events, which was able to just release the stress of our overhead expenses. Corporate spends more money, and so we did less events with higher contracts, which meant my team was not as stressed and not as tired. Our bank account was healthy.
Yes, that's always nice.
It was just a good year to just sit down and settle in and figure out, okay, this is what we're meant to do. And then, of course, 2020 happens. So, and I went into this whole COVID stuff thinking, I've been through worse before.
Yeah.
I've been through tragedy before. I've been through terrible times before. I've had to pick up from nothing and figure it out. And I did those things by saying, okay, this is a situation. What is the next best decision? Not what's the next decision, but what's the next best decision I can do in this moment.
That's good.
And that's how we've handled everything going on. And if I look back on my life, I may not have said those words exactly, but if I look back on my life, I can see that that's what I did. I just figured, okay, this is a crappy situation. And unfortunately, I can't change it. And so what's the next best decision that I can do?
Yeah, it's really good.
It's just been a crazy year. And the double last name is because my son took on my maiden name, which is Petty. Yeah. And then my husband is Palmer. And so I wanted both of my kids. Brody is Brody Petty, and Briley is Briley Palmer. And so I just took on both of their last names and said, you know what, I want to make sure that I don't, one, abandon ship and go over to just Palmer and leave my son in a lurch. And then same thing, I don't want to stay a Petty, leave my daughter. So
I love it. I love it. That's like your whole life in a matter of not even a full decade, right? Like that all has happened in like 8 years?
6, 7 years.
6. Whoo, girl. Okay, so we just need to pray right now that everything 2021 and beyond is restful and smooth sailing, and you can get into that flow. And you said on your last podcast, and there's so many pinpoints of things that we could unpack here and questions that I could come up with, but I think it's really instrumental for people to realize that through it all, one of the points of realization for you was that space where your body provided a warning sign. God, through your body, through the design of your creation, was able to say, hey, you need to wake up. And that the running on a supersonic speed and doing all the things was by your own might, and you needed some release. So talk to us about that experience and how that really helped you put yourself into a state of well-being for your health.
Yeah. I mean, for all those years, I was pouring from a very empty cup. I was not having a daily Bible study. I was not drinking water. I was not sleeping. I was not taking care of myself at all. And that warning sign of something just growing on my hand was just what I needed. And I'm glad that happened. And I'm glad I got to a point where it was almost rock bottom for my body. It wasn't quite, but it was a little warning sign that said, hey, you need to change something or else. And we don't know what it was, but or else something bad will happen. And I love that that actually happened, and I can talk about it now, because now I can see and I can look into, hey, what's off with my body? Like, what are some warning signs? And not only physically with my body, like I'll get, back cramps and I'll get headaches, and that's when I know, hey, I need to eat right, I need to drink some water, and I need to sleep. And those 3 things will fix that. But then I need to figure out, hey, how am I showing up? How am I reacting? How am I showing up for my kids, my husband? How am I showing up for my employees? How am I, what words are coming out of my mouth? What thoughts that aren't coming out, but thoughts that are just running rampant in my mind? And not only thinking about the physical, but also the mental and the things that you say, because that's a reflection of what's going on in here. And if
Totally.
this isn't right, nothing else is.
Yeah,
Like
it's
I can
so
live with
good.
headaches. I can live with
Yeah.
headaches. I can live with a little back pain, but I
Yeah.
can't live with my mind not
Yeah.
in the right place. And
Yeah,
I
that's
know
definitely
those
like a
warning
war
signs
zone.
now. Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
it can be a war
for
zone.
those listening, you might not know what those warning signs are right now. Maybe you haven't gone through something, and my gosh, I hope you don't go through something
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
And so maybe take that example of, hey, if you're getting some headaches and you're having some backaches and you're seeing things on your body that aren't normal, or the words coming out of your mouth are not what your best self would be, or the thoughts that are running rampant in your mind are not encouraging and uplifting. They're dragging you down, and they're thinking, oh, well, what if they think this about me? Or, you know, thinking, self-sabotaging yourself and saying, I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not brave enough, or I can't do this. Well,
Yeah.
instead, think of, well, what else have I done? What else have I gone through that has built me up and put me into a place where I can say, you know what? I've been through something before.
Yeah.
I know what it's like, and I can tell you it's okay. It's
Yeah.
going to be okay.
Yeah, and
And you'll
that
get
that
through it.
component of resiliency, it's just like it continues to build, and God knew that. He knew that you were going to
Yeah.
walk through that in order to steward what it is that he's continuing to bless you with, which is
Yeah.
this beautiful business and a livelihood and a family of abundance. And it's just a beautiful thing that it's continual. Like, we're not gonna, the enemy still exists, right? He's still very active right now in this very moment. And it's so critical for us to realize and to also know that there is a white flag that we can continue to raise for ourselves on our behalf, to say, okay, I'm going to raise this flag so that I can take care of myself for a bit. I'm going to raise
Yeah.
this flag because my family needs this time. I'm going to raise this flag because my business needs some R&R, and I need to learn how to revitalize my team so that we can operate on a fuller schedule and a fuller capacity. And so there's so many warning signs that we wouldn't recognize if we're moving on a supersonic speed, if we're moving on a pace that doesn't allow us to recognize what is going on around us to the fullest extent. And I
Yeah.
think that component for you is that self-check. Like, if everything else was happening around you, you were continuing to, move the needle in all the other areas of your life, but your body was like, hello, I need you and you need me in order to do all of those things. So I think it's amazing that God actually used your actual physical body to show up in a way that needed you to slow down.
Yeah, totally. I shared my story with a marriage group that we were a part of before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And shared my story, went through everything. And one of the leaders, she had said, did you see God there? And I said, you know what? Thank you for asking me that, because looking back now, I can totally see God. I can totally see that He didn't let me get far enough with my health. I can see that He didn't let me stay in a really unhealthy environment. He provided a way out and said, you know what? We need to figure out something else. And I can look back and say, I can see God overhead kind of orchestrating all of these things. But in the moment, I was angry at God. I was saying, where are you? What's going on? Why are you not here? And it's because I didn't have that daily Bible study. It was because I wasn't pouring into myself
In
mentally.
Word,
And so, and spiritually, I wasn't doing that. And so I couldn't see Him because there was that barrier of, hey, if you're not going to communicate with me, it's hard for me to show you who I am.
That's good. That's really good.
And so when I was sharing my story, I was like, I can totally see where God was saying, hey, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to help you figure out what's going on because you're my child. And I know that you believe that I exist. And I know that you're going through stuff. I'd love for you to come up and see me. And I'd love to have this communication with you. But I'm still here. And I'm still going to orchestrate this. And whether you are here or not, and whether you're trying to be with me, I'm still here.
I love you
I'm
anyway.
still going to help you out, even if you're mad at me, even if
Yeah.
you even if you don't want to be around me. And I think we can get into the same thing, and we think of God as a human, and we say, hey, if I don't trust and I don't love, or I don't care for someone else, or I treat them not well, or I don't talk to them, well, they're not going to keep pursuing me. They're going to say, fine,
Yeah.
fine, cool.
Yep,
If you
I'm
won't
out.
be with me, fine, I won't be with you.
Yeah.
And so we sometimes think God is the same way. We think, hey, if he's not going to be here and I can't see him, well, fine. He's left me. He's left the building. He does not want to be here. That's not true.
Yeah, so that's where we have to think about God. Yeah, like less as like our counterpart and more as like our father as he is. Because as a mother, you know, if your child's doing something that you're not pleased with and you have to reprimand him, you're still orchestrating his whole life. You're still cooking him breakfast. You're still cooking him lunch. You're still cooking him dinner. You're still giving him goodnight kisses. You're still washing his butt. Like all the things are still happening. And he, in 5 minutes, forgets that he was just in a place of reprimand, that he was just in a place of correction. And for us to realize that it's okay for God to put us in those places, but he's going to love us through it. He's going to provide in the very same moment he's correcting. He's going to provide the answer and the reconciliation and the understanding of why these things are happening. But he still wants us to rely on him. He still wants us to come to him when we're ready to eat. He still wants us to come to him when we need advice and insight and help. And just like our children do. And we are that for him. And so I love that God gifts us parenthood, just like he gifted you parenthood before you knew the reliance factor of who he was in your life, so that you could recognize, oh, wait, he does love me that much. And he does love me infinitely, more than I can ever deserve or understand. And so it's a beautiful thing that he uses our placement to teach us. And I have women that I coach through the Roots and Wings course, and I have them do something called a journey map. And it's really recognizing themselves and their life and the highs and lows and pinpointing the areas that God has now used to catapult them to the place that they are now, whether it's a difficult situation or a mountaintop situation. And we so easily in 2020, in hindsight, can see where God was. But we often forget where God is right now. And so it's constantly my prayer in the lives of the women that I coach and the lives of my loved ones for us to have our eyes open to where he is right here in this moment, right here in the midst of COVID-19, right here in the midst of racism wars, right in the midst of every business failure or furlough or lack or need, that he's right here and present. And so I pray that we don't have to have always work in the hindsight, but we get to see in the foresight, where's God going to be, and expect him in the next situation, because he's ready and waiting, and it's already planned. He's already figured it out. So for our eyes to be open to that and to just pray and lean into him in that way, I think would allow our lives to feel a lot easier, to trust a lot more, and to release control. Because ultimately, even in those situations, even where you were choosing the next best thing that you could do, God was giving you that opportunity. He was making those doors open, not you, not by your own might, but that's how it feels when we're trying to hold on and juggle all the things where we're in overflow and I can't hold any more, God. And so that's when he literally was like, you're right, you can't. Here's a sign on your body that physically says you cannot hold anymore. And I'm going to teach you how to rely on the sustenance of the things that I provide, the living water, right? It's so good. I just love your story. Is so beautiful. Your testimony is so amazing. And the fact that you were even able to successfully cultivate a business during all of that, girl, kudos to the Jesus within you who provided. He provided even when you weren't working on overflow, which was just what we were talking about, and the number one thing that I believe you have to do in order to have a successful business. So it kind of strips away my word in that. It's probably a lot easier now that you're working out of overflow and goodness and health than it was before when you were striving to do it. So talk to us now about like that entrepreneurial journey. And obviously you mentioned your dad and your mom and how they were at play in that. How in the midst of this destructive relationship did you say, I want to start my own business. Like, what did that look like?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't sound normal.
Yeah, so it was, like I said, my parents have two different sides. My dad is a very businessman. He grew up in corporate America, still is in corporate America. My mom is just a queen of decor and design. Her house is decked out in all design. Every holiday, every night, every birthday was just blown out of the water. My Grammy, her mom, was the same way, and so that's where she learned it. And so at the time, when I graduated high school, right before I graduated high school, our house had burned down, actually. If all of that wasn't enough, our house burned down.
You need to write a book.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I'm working on it.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
My house had burned down. So I moved my senior year of high school. Our whole family moved from Phoenix to Dallas, which I know you're thinking, like, weren't you in Phoenix before? Yes, I was in Phoenix from 7th grade to 11th, Dallas for 12, back to Phoenix for a few more years, and back to Dallas. So
wow.
I flip-flopped quite a bit of times. But we moved here, and our house had burned down. It was a tragedy. I mean, it was terrible. It really was. It was a very long story short, burned down. We lost almost everything. My dad had gotten cancer. It was interesting. He got cancer because he had a kidney stone and he couldn't pass it. And so they had to surgically go in and they found the cancer that way. So thank God he had a kidney stone.
Yeah. Again, your body will tell you signs. Yeah. So crazy.
In the moment, I'm sure he was like, please don't let me have this kidney stone. But thank God he did.
Yeah.
My two grandparents had Alzheimer's and terminal cancer as well. This all within 6 months. And I had been in this journey of trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to do? Like, what is in store for my life? Before we had moved, I was heavily involved in yearbook and art classes, loved that side of things. I was not in the choir. I was not doing that. I was like, I'm all in. And so I had figured before we moved, I said, I'm going to go to FITM in LA, and I'm going to go get a design merchandising degree, and I'm going to work in a big firm that does design and do something in that realm. And I had my whole life planned out because naturally I'm an Enneagram 3 and type A person. So I was like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. Not quite. Moved to Dallas my senior year. And when I graduated, I was not the happiest person because of circumstances. But I moved back to Phoenix and said, essentially, see you later. I don't want anything to do with Texas. I'm moving to Phoenix. And at that point, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And so I worked at a child care center, and I worked at David's Bridal. And because I guess it's the entrepreneur in me, I just always am doing multiple things. Like,
that's so good.
15 years old, my first job, I've always had like 2 or 3 jobs.
That's hilarious. So good. Dabble in all of it.
Yeah, and here I am today. I have a rental business, a design business, a podcast. Like,
wow, it's so fun.
The story of my life. But I'm working these 2 jobs, and my dad had always said growing up, Cam, you'd be really great as a lawyer. And I said, well, that's kind of expensive. And my mom always said, hey, you'd be a really great teacher. And I was like, I don't want to be with kids all my life. So I figured, you know what? I kind of like sales. I really love sales. I'm really good at it. And so I worked at David's Bridal. They had a high commission rate. And so I was like, I'm going to work there. I worked as a preschool teacher because I was like, well, maybe my mom's right. Like, let me just dabble in this. Hated it. It was the greatest control, let me tell you.
That's awesome.
Those 2 places, and simultaneously started my wedding planning business as well while I was doing these things. Surprise, surprise. And finally stepped away from both of those and just went full-time into my wedding planning company. I had the couple who wanted to give me their rental items, essentially started that company,
right.
And then moved out here. And I have the unique opportunity that I've started 2 different companies in 2 different locations. And so I can take the failures and the struggles from the very first launch of a company and say, hey, that didn't go quite right that time. And so now I have a new opportunity to go start this business again and say, hey, I'm going to do it differently this time, and I'm going to make different mistakes along the way, but I'm going to do it differently. And I've kind of learned where I'm at. And when you own a business in one state and you move to another state and you close down that, you're starting from scratch again, which is tough. And so on top of all the things going on at home, I was starting that. And the line of my business and the work that I've done, I can see the Lord blessing that because I had so much going on in my personal life. And I think my breaking point being an Enneagram 3 high achiever who always tries to get as much done as possible, being type A. I can't talk for God, but if I were to assume, I would assume he would probably think, hey, she can't handle not achieving and not flourishing in her business. If everything is crap over in her personal life, something's gotta stay true. You know, I didn't realize it at the time. I thought like, oh, I'm gonna boost my own chest here. Like this, I'm doing great. Like I'm doing all the things I need to do. But I think in the background, it was the Lord saying, you know, you need something in the background that holds steady and gives you something to look forward to and to do. So many years went by that I did not say it was the Lord. I said it was me. I did it all. Like, yay to me. So excited. I'm really good at my job. But now I say, no, but the Lord is blessing me through every single thing because I don't think I could have handled one more thing failing and one more thing not going right in my life. And so
I think that's like such good introspection because if you go to the root understanding of the Enneagram 3, gotcha sister, because that's me too, is we have this desire of value and worth. And like our biggest fear is to not be needed and not feel worthy. And so it's so critical that there's a value attached to who we are. And that worth for you was in the monetizing of your business and the growing of your business and the amount of customers and all of those numbers. Meanwhile, feeling completely unworthy in your marriage and in the life that you were leading in a personal realm. So I love that you attribute that to God because I think that there is so much to that. And I think people, because of our own might and our ability, we forget that that ability literally comes from the Lord, that we are made in his image and that he also was able to multitask and be doing one thing in one city while affecting change in another and following masses and leading impacts. And Jesus himself did all of these things simultaneously and ultimately came in order to die for our sins, right? And so the biggest gift and the biggest burden at the exact same time. And so you're living that duality of your life, like the biggest gift, even your son in that space of feeling like, oh my gosh, this doesn't feel like a gift, but it will be. And now here he is. And I'm sure you wouldn't miss one moment with him knowing the gift that he's been to your life. And so it's incredible to see, but definitely huge introspection because value and worth are so much more than what we can stick or tag an entrepreneurial journey or a business to. And just giving that to him, that praise to him, that he's going to continue to bless and let that be an overflow for you. So really cool. So tell us, so you've developed now in Texas, you've grown this business. It's been super successful, an incredible 2019, 2020 hits, you have a pivot. You have to unpack, how are you going to sustain a staff with this amount of money? Obviously furlough, PPP, all that comes into play. But I know that you've been devising something in the back end, and I want to know what's about to launch, what's coming new, because you didn't sit still during COVID. I know it.
I can't. And it's funny, you know, Enneagram 3, we always have to be doing something. And so I see all my friends who are like, I'm just chilling and like enjoying this unemployment. I'm like, you know, that actually sounds pretty nice.
I agree.
But I would not sit there for more than a day. So it was interesting back in, October before the Rise conference, I had been kind of having this pull on my heart to teach, kind of going back to earlier, my mom always saying that I'd be a great teacher. I came back to this point of like, hey, I kind of feel something pulling on my heart to share what I've been through share my business journey, share the things that I've learned and figured out and failed along the way, and decided, hey, that failed, now I'm going to do something different. And I just felt this tug on my heart. I didn't know specifically what it was, but I felt this tug on my heart to share and get my story out. And November happened. It was incredible. I really hope that they do another business conference soon. We'll see. Depends on a whole lot of things.
Yes.
But during that conference, I had, I don't remember which session it was. It was probably with Rachel, but just the idea of, hey, pour back into your community, meaning my rental, my design business community. Pour back into them, pour back into them, pour back into them. And it was like, how is that going to happen? And so we kind of started dreaming up these ideas, and I'm a visionary person. I like to see, like, hey, what could we do? Like, throw things out there. What on earth could we do? And so we were devising all these things, and we had made a roadmap that she taught us there. And we said, hey, in 2021, we're going to launch an education platform for rental businesses and design creative businesses. And we said, during 2020, we're going to research, we're going to develop this passion, we're going to figure it out slowly and figure out what this looks like. And in January, it was a great month rental-wise. We had our best month ever. February, same thing. And so we're like, oh, we might have to push that off. It's like such a busy year already, which is great. And then March happened, and COVID happened, and our very last rental income was February 28th. And so from February 28th until February 28th to June 15th, we didn't receive any income for events at all. And the income that we're now getting is very, very little compared to what we typically are experiencing. So during this time, I had kind of started to think about this idea of putting together an e-course for rental businesses. And I had this huge passion. It was overflowing, and I could not stop talking about it with my team. And so Kaylee on my team, she said, why don't you just start pursuing that? I was like, okay, like, let's do it.
Of course, yes, great.
For the entire month of February, worked on the worksheets and the script, and trying to figure out how we're going to film this thing and trying to get it all done. And it was March 10th and 11th, I believe, that I filmed the entire course, 20 videos in 2 days.
Wow.
It was 12-hour film days, both days. It was crazy. I was wiped by the end of it. By the end of both days, I was like, zipping my lip. I do not want to talk to anybody.
I get that.
So we went through those, and Wednesday was the last day that we did that. Thursday came, and that was the day that COVID hit the business the hardest. Mm-hmm. I came in on such a high, feeling like my cup was overflowing. I was like, I just filmed everything. Like, it's so great. I'm on top of the world. Like, I feel like I've accomplished so much. And my employees had flowers on my desk for me, and like cute little notes of encouraging and all that. And I was like, this is the best. And then 10 o'clock hits, and we get a call. Hey, I need to postpone my wedding because there's a pandemic happening. We're like, pandemic? Let's Google what is happening in the world right now. I mean, we were oblivious to it. Totally
sure.
oblivious. And then 10:30, an email comes in. Hey, I need to postpone my event. 11 o'clock, hey, I need to postpone. 12 o'clock, hey, I need to cancel. I mean, all day long. It was like flies dropping like a hat. I mean, it was just one after the other. And what went from a super high of everything that we had just accomplished and just put together, it just came down. And I remember bawling my eyes out that night because I was like, my entire business is crumbling before my eyes. So my worst nightmare was coming into the office with no events, and that's happening. I don't know what to do. I grabbed a drink with my dad. Typically, we don't grab drinks. Like, that's just not a thing. We don't go out to a bar. We had gone over to their house for dinner, and my dad was like, want to go grab a drink? And I was like, yes, I do. I sure do. Our neighborhood, it's this cute little like half outdoor, half indoor bar. It's so cute. And sat there at the bar with a drink, crying my eyes out because I was like, this is my worst nightmare. I've never experienced total shutdown of a business before. And this is my prized possession. Like, my business is the thing that I hold so dear to my heart, and is just the mainstream of everything that I do. And I remember coming to the office Friday morning. One of my gals is out of town. I said, emergency team meeting. Need you to Skype in for the team meeting, and we're going to have a team meeting. I broke down with my team and was like, I just want to be transparent with you. We have 0 events for the next 2 months. And to be honest, I think it's going to keep going. I think it's going to be longer than 2 months. And I said, we've got enough in the bank account to make the next few paydays. That's about it.
Yeah.
So what are y'all good at? Like, what can you do? And my team, it was so sweet of them. We don't talk about faith much at the office because it's such a secular business that we're in. And honestly, we don't have time to talk about much other than work because we're so busy at work.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that all my staff were believers.
Wow.
I knew that my 2 office girls were believers. I did not realize my warehouse staff was, because I just didn't see them as often. They worked in the warehouse. We worked on our computers, and then at the end of the day, we went home.
Yeah.
And they all said, you know, I know that we're going to make it through because I know that the Lord is here. And I was like, what? What just came out of your mouth? I was like, are you a Christian? And he was like, yeah, I am. And I was like, I did not know that. Awesome. So glad for that. And it was an awakening moment of, the Lord has blessed this business. The Lord has put believers in my business that he didn't have to put there, but they're there. And from November, we learned from Rachel about all the finances and figuring out finances and saving for a rainy day and all of that. So we had built up a savings account, and the Lord blessed us with enough money to make it through middle of May with no income coming through. I mean, it's bonkers the way that we were making money and affording payroll. We'd get to, the beginning of May, before PPP and EIDL money was there, and we were like, I might have to skip a paycheck to be able to pay for my other employees. Like, I don't know if we're going to make it. And then all of a sudden we'd get something come in. We'd either have someone who was like, hey, are you selling any inventory? And we're like, yep, we are. You want something? Or they'd say, hey, can you make up me a flower arrangement? And we're like, yep, we can. We'll do whatever
anything you need, yeah.
Payroll. And it was like, I mean, to the day before payroll, we'd be like, okay, count me out for this paycheck. Like, I will not take a pay so that I can pay my employees. Wow. And we made it to where, okay, I can take a paycheck. Like,
you have customers listening that are just amazed by your transparency. They love that you had enough money in reserve. She's a financial coach, so of course she loves that you had money in reserve and that you rock as a boss and your positive perspective on all of it. And God. I mean, it's all God in that regard.
It totally is. I mean, I could not muster enough of myself to figure out how I can get everyone paid by that paycheck. I just couldn't, that is not me at all. Because I did not pursue someone coming to buy stuff. I did not pursue someone coming to do flowers. Wow. It just showed up at our doorstep.
Wow.
And so, of course, we said, yep, we need that money. And then we finally got the PPP, and we were like, okay, for the next 8 weeks, like, we're good. Okay,
yeah,
great.
Yeah.
And then the EIDL came just 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's just been such a blessing. I've never seen the numbers that are in our bank account now. It's amazing. It's great. And it gives me more assurance that, hey, he's got us.
Yeah.
He's got us in his hands.
Every time.
And the moment I start doubting, he shows up and he's like, hey, like, I got you.
Yes, it's so good.
I've got you. And we need to remember that. We totally remember that. And it's so easy to get thrown off. It's so easy.
Yeah, I mean, it really is.
Tempt you with so many things. The news will tempt you with so many things. And the devil, Satan, is prowling throughout every thing. He is saying, you know what? I know you find success in your business. I'm going to do whatever it takes to shut you down.
Yeah, it's so true.
I took all my events away. But here we still are. We're still rocking.
So good.
Says, you know what? You have some friends that are of color. I'm going to make their lives hell right now. Yeah. And we're going to, figure out some divide. Let's divide you with some of the people that you consider friends. Yeah. But then God says, buddy, that's great. Good try, Satan. But we're not doing that today. Yeah. And it's incredible to see. And it's incredible that, we can look back on our life and we can say, hey, I saw him at work. But then we have to remember he's still at work.
Right now.
Like it wasn't in the past. He wasn't in the past at work. He's still here. Yeah. And he's currently, right now, like he is here and he is saying, hey, I know you're struggling. Even if you don't trust me, even if you don't realize I'm here, I'm still here. And I'm not leaving. Yeah.
It's so good. And I think that's a right now word.
Too. Like I'm in the same boat. Yeah. I'm still fearful that my business could suffer and go down. I'm still fearful that my course that I actually filmed for a second time because of everything that launches in 2 weeks. But I'm still like, there's fear in that it won't sell, and that all the work that I've put into this course, that it's not going to sell. And so there's still fear. But then I have to say, but God has a plan, and whoever does buy that course, whether it's 5 people or 1 person or hundreds of people, those people who do buy the course, it's going to bless their lives. Absolutely. And it's going to help them become better business owners, whether it's to 1 or to 500. And
such a good heart set to be in. It's so true.
Then it's worth it.
Yep,
all the time
always
that I've
for the
poured
one.
into it, it's worth it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing to know. And even as I started back in the day recording this podcast, having no idea where God was going to take it, that I would hit top of the charts and in the religious and spiritual section, climbing in business, that it was always for the one. And ultimately, what I always find is, even when we're conversating, that the one might be me. And the one might be you. And that's okay. That's enough. But we've had dozens of listeners live today. We're going to have hundreds and thousands of listeners coming to this episode alone. And so I am just incredibly grateful that you were so transparent, that you were able to give people a true insight into what success looks like. And success is messy, and success has highs and it has lows. And ultimately, if our reliance is on the Father, our recognition is on His goodness, that those lows become highs because they get to be footing points for you to grow and thrive. And it's so good. I want people to know where to find you. So tell them how they can do it. One of the gals who's listening said, what is the course about? So if you want to answer that on our outtake, it's been amazing to be with you today.
Yeah, so the course is called Rental Biz Academy. You can find it on our website if you go to beautifuleventrentals.com. There's a little button at the top that says education. You can go sign up for our wait list. It launches on the 27th of July, so 2 weeks away, which is very exciting. There's a lot to do for it, but we're excited about it.
Awesome.
But to find us, you can follow my business on Instagram. It's Beautiful Event Rentals. And then if you want to follow me personally, I post a little bit more about education and just pouring into my community on my personal Instagram, which is MS Cam Alexandra. I go by my middle name just so I don't get all the questions about my double last name. But those are the places that you can find me. I do live more on Instagram than anywhere else. However, I'm on most other social media platforms. So that's where you can find me. I just have a huge passion for just diving into the community that is given to me. In my Start Today morning journal, I write every morning. What do I write? I say I deeply care about my team and community. And that's what I hope that I can do, is just deeply care, and people can feel that they're deeply cared for.
That's so good. That's so good. What final words do you have for us? We're all in the midst of the similar season as you, especially as entrepreneurs and women. What would be your final, go get 'em message?
Yeah, listening to my testimony, my story today, I just hope that listeners take that and say, hey, I'm going to learn from that, and I'm going to take what she talked about and really take a deep dive and really think about, hey, the Lord has blessed me whether I see it or not, and he's still there today. And I think there's so much in the world going on that we can think that the Lord has left the building and he said, hey, like, good luck, figure it out. But that's not true. Like, he's still here and he's still prevalent, and it's not some weird thing to think about. Like, it's still very much alive. And I think anyone who's a believer can say, hey, the Lord kind of got me through that past experience, and that was great and all, but he's not here currently, but he still is right in this moment. And so just remembering that and taking a moment at least once a day to realize, like, hey, Lord, like, I realize that you're here and I get it, and I might not hear you and I might not see you at work today, but I know you're here and you're helping me figure out what's going on.
That's good. It reminds me of the part of the conversation where you're saying, like, there's this barrier, there's this limitation, and he's always communicating this way, and it's a matter of if we can remove that barrier and communicate back, and also just to think in the reflection point of, like, us as mothers, like, they don't always know all the stuff that we do behind the scenes. My kids didn't know that I went and grocery shopping, or that I went and picked up medicine for them that I'm going to use later, or a new conditioner, or any of that stuff. They don't know how we operate. And just in our businesses, they don't see all the back end. They don't see all the energy. Even your team doesn't know the fullest of full that goes into what you do to keep them as a team. And so I pray blessings over that continued, growth of your business, the establishment of your business, of your home, of your husband's health, of your children, the knowing that they know that their parents are constantly for them and fighting for them and growing and loving them, and for us to just receive God today in the abundance that he has for us, the gifts and the blessings of right now, and the gratitude of everywhere that he's been in the past, and the hope and expectancy and the knowing of where he's going to show up in the future for our businesses, for our lives, and for our purpose. So God, we just thank you. And I thank you, Cam, again. It was so beautiful. You were such a gift to my day, and I know to the listeners who have been on and will listen in the future. So blessings, and we'll still be in touch. You ain't going anywhere.
Yes. Thank you for having me, friend.